So let's start off light. This is just some spruce clapboard. This is all just wrist. Move up, put a little bit of elbow into it. A lot of power here. That's ridiculous. That's silly. Look at that. That's completely foolish. Now, that wood's not rotted. The blade is just mangling it. Wonder, can I do something really silly? If, get out of the way, buddy. That's the nice thing about the false edge on this. Just beat those out of the way. If I cut this in a 45, so normally when you're making a V, you're going basically, or trying to, perpendicular to the wood. Now I'm standing off to the side, so my notches are a bit asymmetrical, but now that's just wrist, that's not even elbow. But anyway, you see you're coming in sort of straight onto the wood. That's not the best for penetration. Ridiculous. Anyway, but I want to see, might as well cleave you off. There we go. If I come back, so your maximum penetration is going to be roughly on about a 45 and on a 45, something like this. So 45 across it this way and across it that way. And basically what this does, it gives you maximum penetration to shift the grains out of the way. When you go like this, which you never want to do, straight down into the wood, you're compressing the wood grains. They have no ability to lift up, get out of the way, there's no splitting, it's 100% compression. Once you go on an angle like that, you can see the wood is moving up out of the way, so you're no longer compressing it, the wood can move up, so you can get much higher penetration. So 45, 45. Again, elbow only, weak grip. Relatively close. Very little left of that. That's all that was left of that piece of wood. This is just a regular piece of spruce 2x4. It, however, has been stored outside in the sun, so it's baked. It's a bit harder than regular fresh 2x4, which is bought straight from the store. Anything between 5 to 10 hits would be acceptable with this size of knife. Anything as you're approaching 5 and going under, which would be unlikely, would be simply phenomenal. And going over 10 on this side of a blade would be a bit of an issue. But I'll start off a bit light and see what we look at. Okay. The power is really high. Really high. I'm putting very little effort into this. So even with the weak grip, which is forward, and very light effort, just mainly coming from the elbow, it just annihilates a piece of spruce 2x4. Okay, let's have a look at some harder sections. Now you can see this is full of little knots. They're generally not that big of an issue, but there are some large cluster knots down at the bottom. Now normally, if I wasn't doing this just to check, I'd go through this section here because it's relatively free and clear, but I'll see what we can do here. And again, this is mainly just elbow. This is really phenomenal. And the other thing is too, this is really the first heavy cutting I've done with this blade, and the cuts are just lining up really well. I mean, for this amount of experience, now normally I just flip it over here, but I want to see if I can drive through. No problem. Excellent penetration, really fluid in the wood, really nice feel in hand, security is very high. And again, this is weak grip, only with my elbow, and I don't think that's the most powerful part on the blade. I actually think that's a bit too much far forward. See, as you move straight out on the blade, you get more speed and rotation, but when the blade impacts, you also get more counter torque coming back. So if I hit, say, out here, the blade hits the wood hits the blade. When the wood hits the blade, it applies a force back here. But you can see my hand is way back here. I've got to try to fight that counter torque, which I can't do very well because it's so far ahead, so it snaps the blade back like this and stops it very efficiently. So for example, okay, this is full of cement, but I don't really care about that. I'm going to sharpen the blade after I cut through this. Anyway, so I'll cut right out with the tip. You can see the penetration is relatively shallow, and again, the problem is the wood exerts that force on the blade and it just barely makes any contact. Go back a bit, completely different animal. If you get that issue with torque coming back on you when you're out by the tip, why don't you chop right in next to your hand? Because now, if I was to chop right in next to my hand, okay, there's a big nail right there. So if I was to chop right here, well geez, the force from the wood on the blade is right next to my hand, so I'd have no problem whatsoever fighting that torque. That's true, but the problem is there's very little speed in rotation at this point. So I've sacrificed way too much speed. So there will be a happy medium between essentially right here and here, where you get a balance of speed and a balance of inertial moment. And it's generally, for power chopping, right in front of the center of mass. So I'm expecting it to be slightly down here, but I'm having fun fooling around with the tip. And I don't know how far you go out, buddy. I'm going to try right here. And again, there's knots all over this wood. It's not clear, but no issues. This is ridiculous. There was a knot right at the bottom. I was wondering why that wasn't clearing. Edge is fine. Given that this edge is around 35 thou thick and that the angle is I think somewhere around 18-20 degrees per side, it varies little along the edge. I don't expect any issues in regards to durability, even cutting through the knots. I am going to take the edge down a bit in terms of angle relatively quickly, but I want to do some work before I do that. I very rarely sharpen at anything above 15 DPS, and even on heavy woods blades, the primary bevel angle down here will only generally be 10 to 12 degrees per side, and only the very apex, the last maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 thou thick, goes up to around 14 to 16 DPS. So I will be taking this whole edge angle down quite a bit, and I'm also going to take down the primary grind in this area to around 5 thou thick. Of course I lose this lovely coating, but such is life. Now, one more. There's a nail right in the middle of that. Okay, let's try to avoid you, buddy. It's probably my best bet there then. Whatever. I can't get a perfectly clear face. So, now you can see how clear, how easy it comes out of the wood. It's got an excellent balance, penetration, and cutting ability. And I couldn't have asked for a better cut than that. A little bit of scalping there, but